And we're back with another exciting ZVT at Epic Land. This time I'm joined by Raza, who just
Hey
playing
guys.
against Figaro.
Yeah, excited for some more TVZ. Will be nice to be watching rather than facing the swarm.
A little bit less stressful, not having
Mm.
Banelings running into your mineral lines at all points.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be good to see. You need to get revenge on Figaro tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will.
But that's not important right now. Right now, we're going to go into a little bit of a lower level ZVT. We got Frugs versus Voltacus coming up pretty soon. We're just going to make sure that the players are ready, and then we'll probably be jumping right into it.
Yeah, they're both around 4.5 to 4.7k MMR, I'd say. And yeah, I think I know both of their playstyles quite well. Volticus, he's pretty solid macro terran, likes his marine tank pushes. Whereas Frugs, I think he can be pretty standard Zerg, but he does like to mix in a lot of roach aggression. So I'm curious to see whether he's confident enough to play a standard game or whether he's going to pull out the roach cheese.
Yeah, and to be honest, both of these players are kind of on fire today, fighting above their normal level, right? I know Volt took a long break from Starcraft 2, and then he wasn't at the last Epic Land, but he seems to be doing really, really well. He had an upset against Molten, didn't he?
Yeah, that was a great series.
And then Frugs himself had a nice upset against AC.
Yeah. And this is a really important match in the group, right? This group's in a really weird place where a lot of people can still advance and still be eliminated. So this match will determine a lot how Group B shapes up.
And I know that both of them are pretty keen to be not relegated into Code A. I think that they're going to want to make it into the upper bracket to play with the big boys and see how well they can do. It's always fun to go and play in Code A. Code A is a really fun bracket to play in, but I think it's nice to just to know that you're in the top half. I think.
Okay, well, you're a Code A champion yourself, so yeah, I
Yeah,
trust your opinion there.
yeah. You wouldn't know. You can't relate.
Well, if I try my luck in GSL in a time machine 8 years ago, I'd probably get Code A compared to Code S.
Yeah,
I think.
I think at the right time, the right place.
Yeah. There was like a MOG like exchange program, wasn't there, where certain finishers of MOG, like the top two got into Code S and like the top next two got into Code A, something like that. There was.
Yeah.
So it
And
was
then
fun
maybe
times.
maybe there's a timeline where Raza goes to Korea and wins Codas
Yeah.
with a little bit more support, Maru's mentorship a little bit,
Yeah. Young Maru's
young
mentorship.
Maru's
Yeah.
mentorship, or maybe you could have mentored Maru.
Yeah, and then he'd be trash now. Yeah, it's good that didn't happen.
It all would have fallen apart.
They're ready. I think they're waiting for us.
All right, we are ready to get started. So the first match is going to be on Berlingrad. It's Volticus versus Frugs. Let's jump into the game.
So I think people say this is a pretty good Terran map, and I think it is. There's some decent tank spots. There's not too many bases, and there's some nice, good pushing paths, both along like the top right-hand side and the bottom left, to deny bases in both ways the Zerg can spread out.
Yeah, I've seen some nasty Terran siege positions on this map. All right, let's get started. In the bottom right-hand corner, playing for no team at the moment, it is Voltacus. And the crowd roars with applause.
Woo. And in the top left, sporting as the pink Zerg, also teamless, but representing Imperial College London, we have Frugs.
Who I may accidentally call Hugo at least 3 or 4 times during this cast,
That's all right.
out of sheer habit. So if I say Hugo, those at home, I'm talking about Frugs.
Yeah, so far, all looking very standard. Looks like it's going to be Hatch first. Well, actually, we're still going to see in a very few seconds here. Is it Hatch or Pool first? All right, yep. That is a Hatch first, and standard play from Volticus as well. So nothing crazy in the first minute of this game.
Yeah, and both players, I think, wanting to put their best foot forward, play a pretty standard game. I know that Frugs is pretty good at preparing for opponents and having a sort of a series mindset. So it'd be interesting to see how the series plays out from the start. So he's going to start off with a pretty standard build, and then maybe we'll see him sort of condition him into thinking that that's what it's gonna be like, and then do something a little bit cheesy in game 2 or 3.
Yeah, the mind games will be interesting throughout this series. I think Volticus has been inactive the past few months, only recently playing again. So I'm not sure what Frug will expect from him.
And I know that, as far as I know, Voltacus tends to do a little bit better versus Zerg than he does against Protoss. I know he's relatively outspoken in terms of the UK community about not loving the matchup against Protoss, finding it pretty frustrating. So I'm really interested to see how he does against a Zerg player, who's of a pretty high caliber, to be honest.
Yeah. I know Voltacus has done very well in the past in show matches against Wok, a good UK Zerg. I think a bit lower level than Frugs. I'm not sure how him versus Frugs has played out in the past. I think they've played quite a bit and go almost 50-50 in matches.
Yeah, Frugs is the kind of player I think who I wouldn't think of him as a particularly consistent player, but he is the kind of player who during tournaments I think he usually fights a lot above his normal level. So you won't. I normally don't see him at a super high MMR on the ladder, but then I look at the games that he takes in tournaments, and I'm always really impressed with how he does, which is really the kind of player that I mean you'd want to be.
Yeah, good to be a tournament player. And we do see this first Reaper trying to get a drone, but I don't think Frugs will let that happen. Decent control overall.
Yeah, the ever-present early game Zerg versus Terran, Reaper versus Zergling battle that ends up in basically no damage for either player. But it's a nice little skill check there to see, you know, am I going to get all your Zerglings? And I think overall, Hugo's going to be happy with that. He's just going to go, okay, well, you didn't get any of my stuff. You didn't get a single drone, so go home.
Yeah, for sure. Perfect result from Frugs. And yeah, I think Voltacus looks like he's gearing up for some Hellions and probably a 6 Hellion Liberator opening, if I know him well enough.
You don't think he'll go for the Banshees? Is there a particular tip-off?
I think Voltacus said he's most comfortable with the Liberators. Just the Banshees, I think it's quite a bit harder to multitask them and get damage done. Whereas the Liberator sort of shift-click that in, distract them, swoop in with the Hellions. It feels really good.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to set up the precision multi-prong attacks, I think, with the Liberator, which is nice. Got a little bit of a wandering Overlord here from Frugs. Looks like he's just on a bit of a patrol path, but since there's no Marine out right now, I think he's, well, I mean, there is a Marine, but looks like he's not being aggressive with it.
Yeah, I like that little patrol. The Overlord can get back to safety whenever it needs to. And yeah, it gets a bit of extra vision. I think that's a pretty good innovation by Frugs.
Yeah, and I really like this stage of the game where you just got like the 2 Hellions poking in, and looks like actually Voltacus is going to be a little aggressive with these, realizing that he's got a bit of a time here before Zergling speed finishes. This is a really nice little timing.
Yeah, this is a late Zergling speed and Frugs is getting punished for it. 4 drones going down, that's already a lot. And especially if you can get out of here with these Hellions, that's an amazing start for Voltacus.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure why Frugs didn't have Zergling speed finish in time for that, if that's just a particular build. And the other thing is I'm not sure if Volt knew about it.
Yeah, I think Voltacus is so strange, so bedazzled that there's no Zergling speed in time that he scans the main to see what's up, but there was nothing really up from Frugs, just a bit of a mistake, I think.
Yeah, not going for anything super not standard, just a bit of a late Zergling speed, and looks like there are going to be Zerglings out in time for this, a couple of Queens positioning themselves.
But that's not many Lings. If one swoop on those Lings with the Hellions, and those Lings are gone. And in the top hand side of the map, we have the Liberator coming into the main base of the Zerg. Let's see. Oh, it's shift-clicked it onto a Spore and Queen. That's not ideal at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, Hugo realizing that might be happening. Looks like he's not going to be his first rodeo dealing with that Liberator, so the exact obvious spot that it was probably going to go. But yeah, looks like a little bit of a scrap here. But the Zerglings are now dead, and the Queens are trying to chase these, but actually these Hellions doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, there's 6 extra drones. Oh, 9. That's actually pretty good. 11.
Wow.
Yeah, he lost all the Hellions, but still, that is a good damage in the end. But it's not game-ending damage by any means.
So if you're Voltacus in this spot, what are you thinking as your next step? Does anything change as part of your build as a result of killing that many drones? Or do you pretty much just continue on doing what you're doing, but it's just a little bit easier?
So I think with Voltacus' next push, with some Marines and tanks, he can be a bit more optimistic about it. He knows that he's weakened Frugs, so he can capitalize on that and maybe be a bit more aggressive with his push and try and kill the 4th base compared to just clearing up creep and taking some space.
And looks like Frugs, for his part, isn't going to try to do anything cheesy. He's not going to go all in, anything like that. He's just going to put down his Evo chambers. He's going to take his gases and just play it out, see how much he can get out of it. He is going to be behind on upgrades a little bit, but I think Volt just is always going to be expecting to have better upgrades here.
Yeah, I think Voltacus is just a bit ahead, and Frugs is playing very textbook Zerg right now. He's got just 4 gases, so I think this will be a Ling Bane style. I'm curious to see whether he's going to add Hydras on, or maybe just stick with pure Ling Bane for now.
Looks like the
Counter-Strike going on.
Counter-Strike players are getting a little excited. I like to think that they're cheering for Voltacus.
Yeah, yeah. Let's imagine that.
They're getting a little bit rowdy.
Oh, so some of them may be cheering for Hugo or Frugs as well. All
Yeah.
right.
I don't know that Zerg players cheer that loudly though. I think that's more of a Terran cheer.
Oh, yeah. You're right. You're right. We support our brethren.
Zerg players, they like to quietly support them,
Yeah.
quietly support their friends.
All right. So Voltacus is just doing like a 16 Marine 2 medevac push out to clear creep. He's not doing a fully committed push. So this is the safer option where you don't risk Lings running by to your third and killing a bunch of workers. So I like this play by Voltacus. It's a bit more conservative, but guaranteed damage. He just wants to trade well and kill some creep really with this, and then set up the scene for his next big push once he's got a few more units.
Yeah, and he's picked off an Overlord. He's actually going to get a second Overlord here. Ooh, really
Oh,
close.
cast a curse there.
And then, so if I'm understanding, then he'll, just use this to clear a bunch of creep, and then he'll be pushing up for like maybe a 2-2 push a little bit later on.
Yeah, yeah. I think he might even do like a push around now just as his 1-1 is finished, or he could be very defensive and wait for 2-2. But this fourth base location by Voltacus is very interesting as part of his third base wall-off. I think it's all right, actually.
It's
It's
interesting.
a bit
isn't it?
vulnerable, but
So then he'll
Cool.
just float this down here.
yeah, I imagine
yeah.
so.
Does potentially prevent against the Baneling run bys, which is always nice. Looks like
Ooh.
he's going to get a little bit of a nice position here, and the medevacs are going to be forced away, but yeah, nice little hot pickup there.
Yeah, I would have liked to see a bit more multi-prong from Voltacus. Maybe that third medevac going to the north side of the map instead to split Frugs apart. So far, Frugs is defending perfectly, but his drone count is really low. Frugs is only at 62 workers, whereas he should really be at around 80 right now. He is adding 9 more just now, but it's a bit late. His economy is nowhere near as good as a Zerg would want it to be.
Yeah, and I think losing the 11 drones earlier on definitely would have put a damper in that, but even then, he might have been a little bit overly defensive with making units.
Yeah, he's got 1k minerals in the bank, so I think maybe he's having a bit of trouble with injects. I think he's got 2 macro hatches in his main. That's quite a lot.
And Voltacus is going to go for the multi-prong, but not paying attention, does lose only a few, but does stop the medevac from dropping. On the other side of the map, he's going to stem a group of 2 medevacs of Marines, but looks like Hugo actually has really nice splits here in terms of his Ling Bane on both sides of the map. So not a lot of damage is going to get done, and actually Volt is going to start bleeding out units from these drops.
Yeah, I think these drops have been quite meager. I think the first 2 medevacs were good, but there hasn't really been much firepower with the rest of the drops. There's been no tank support, no mine support to really make these drops tricky to deal with.
And actually,
another medevac.
yeah, medevac going down. I could see the ruins of it now, just sitting in the jungle.
But we don't have 2-2 started up for Frugs yet. He's transitioning into Lurkers. So Lurkers are not too important, well, they don't need upgrades as much as pure Ling Bane, so it's not the end of the world, but I really want to see Frug start 2-2 soon. And this tank push is going to be strong.
Yeah, so he's going to hit basically a 2-2 timing here with a good amount of Marines and a lot of different tanks here, so this is looking pretty scary. And this is a nice little spot to siege up in as well.
And a nice focus fire on a few Banelings there. There's not many Banelings from Frugs, actually. There's only a handful. Okay, the surround is coming in. Let's see how the Marine splits are. Oh, okay, this is pretty good for Voltacus. I think Voltacus is going to be able to beat this army.
Yeah, so in the end, even though the positioning of the army for both players was a little bit questionable in the end, they kind of engaged the wrong end of both of each other's armies. But it looks like Volt is going to catch all these drones here, and it is an absolute massacre with the 4th base ready to go down.
Yeah, Voltacus really capitalizing on that upgrade lead. Took a good fight, and now Frugs is in a lot of trouble. He just needs to try and survive and get some Lurkers out, and he's got a chance in this game still. But it's not a good chance.
And he is just going to pick up and leave, but I do like the pickup there with the moving drop to spread out against the Banelings. But I think there is more than enough Zerg here to stop him, but,
yeah, but
I mean, it's not a great position.
Yeah, and there's a huge wave of reinforcements. Actually, not that huge. If Voltacus messes up the micro here, these Banelings could clean up town, but nice pickups.
And is going to lose a tank for his trouble, so I think Voltacus maybe needs to just go home and regather his forces and hit a 3-3 timing at this point.
Yeah, Voltacus really macroing up a lot right now. He's got his 4th landed, and he's got 2 extra command centers started as well. And yeah, he's just adding on his extra 3 racks now. I think these 3 racks are a bit late. Would have been good to have those up and running by now. But we do see 7 Lurkers on the field. So Lurkers are a really good comeback mechanic for Zerg.
Yeah, especially if you just happen to catch the Terran after they've used a few mules or something like that with no scans. It's going to be really annoying, but there's only a couple Lurkers in position right now, so there's going to be somewhat of a battle here before Voltacus realizes that it's time up. But actually, he catches quite a few
Ooh.
of these out, and with the focus fire, he is doing a pretty good job of trading so far.
Yeah, a really good engagement by Voltacus there, capitalizing on the lurkers not being properly supported. And these lurkers don't have their upgrades yet, so they're not super scary.
Yeah, and he's actually able to like just sort of move his Marines out in a concave around here, leaving the tanks in position. And I think this third base might actually be going down, and it's going to be a GG.
Nice. A very solid play from Voltacus. I think this was both players saying, okay, let's see how the macro game goes, and Voltacus came out quite comfortably on top there.
Yeah, and I really like Bolt's style there. Now that I've had a chance to see him play, sort of he got a little bit of damage done early, which you could say maybe a little bit lucky that Frugs didn't have link speed in time.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see how a game between them looks when it's standard and when Frugs doesn't lose a bunch of drones early on. But I think more than once he was able to kill quite a lot with his harass. So the initial harass was a bit lucky, but the follow-up Hellion harass, I think that was just maybe an undercommitment of defense from Frugs in that position.
Yes, it's in a hard situation when you've already taken some damage. Then you don't want to build extra defense as well. So Frugs took a bit of a gamble there, being light on the defense. He got punished, and then yeah, Voltacus just macroed really well and closed it out cleanly with a nice 2-2 push.
And I really like that style. I mean, as someone who's trying to learn Terran, it's really interesting to see the sort of logic behind what you're doing with your pushes and when. So thinking, okay, we're gonna just poke with our 2 medevacs full of Marines, and then we're gonna build up and do a 2-2, and then we'll do a 3-3 push. And it seemed really clean, and it seemed pretty well thought out from Voltacus as well, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, I have a feeling Frugs is gonna flip the switch a bit and cheese things up now. When you're down 1-0 in a series, and your tournament life is potentially on the line, well, at least your Codex dreams are on the line, then you've got to pull out the dirtiest thing you've got.
And we'll see what he has in store for us. Meanwhile, we've got, on the other end of the map, we have Voltacus.
And in the bottom left, 0-1 down in this series, fighting for his Codex dreams, we have the pink Zerg Frugs.
I don't fear many things, but I fear this man.
Well, you should do. We all fear him.
Frugs and I have played many games.
Yeah.
And I tell you, when he's in form and when he's feeling it, I have to say, overall, I've noticed that Frugs has maybe been a little bit mechanically abnormal compared to his normal self this tournament. I've seen him floating minerals quite a lot, like even in the mid game, maybe 1,000, 1,500 minerals, and dying with minerals in hand, which always feels a bit bad. But I know that if he sorts that out, that's a kind of a good problem to have. If it's not normal for you, you can fix that. Whereas if you're strategically having issues, it might be harder to get your head out of the mud.
Yeah. Like just at land, mechanical form varies a lot depending on your conditions. So yeah, it's part of the land experience. Frugs might just be having some issues, which is making his mechanics suffer a bit. Let's see if he can make up for that.
So yeah, as normal, everything's looking pretty standard here. It's going to be a typical Reaper expand from Voltacus, single gas, everything else.
Yeah, all standard so far. Frugs proving me wrong, perhaps, but Zergs have a lot of different chances to throw out a lot of different stuff. Just because you see a hatch first doesn't mean roaches aren't going to pop out a couple minutes later.
Yeah, I would love to see a roach attack. It always makes the games quite intense to figure out, it's sort of binary though, whether or not they scout it. And whether or not they, have the units in time to defend it. So, but I have a feeling actually that Frugs is just going to play this one as standard, and I think he's going to be kicking himself for the way that the early game went last game, going, oh man, I forgot speed, and then thinking to himself, well, I'm not going to completely change my plan just because I made a mistake and forgot speed. So he's going to trust himself, trust his instincts, and see if he can make something happen in game 2.
Yeah, I like that approach, and yeah, we do see the Zergling speed start at a better time this game.
He should have more than enough time to defend those Hellions. So far, the little dance of death between these pairs of units is going to be going the same way that it had before, and Voltacus maybe being a little bit aggressive here, but nice drone micro there from Frugs, and the Queen is out now to stabilize.
Yeah, the Reaper War kind of shows these two as evenly matched, from what I'm seeing.
It's a symbolic victory, isn't it, when you win the Reaper War?
Yeah. I don't know what feels better, getting a tumor or getting a link. Well, yeah, tumor for sure. I think drone feels the best, then the tumor, then I guess 2 links feels pretty good as well. Or 1 link doesn't really feel that much, just like, it's just a link, 25 minerals.
As a rule, if you were to kill all 4 lings, would that change anything for you?
It wouldn't change. Well, with my first 2 Hellions, I'd be a lot more aggressive with them. Oh, and we do see a Roach Warren coming down. So,
Oh, and Frugs is going to do his best to make sure that this doesn't get scouted, but I think it actually
oh,
will.
oh, that Queen in the main wasn't in the right position. Oh, where is it? Oh, the Roach Warren is in the natural, actually.
Oh, what
So
a
it hasn't
nice
been scouted.
position. Yeah, so if we check Voltacus's vision, he still doesn't know, and all he's gonna see is 3 bases. He's gonna see desperately that Frugs was trying to stop him from peeking into the main, but it's just a little bit unfortunate that he's not gonna see it.
Yeah, so it's really crucial that Voltacus really pokes in with these Hellions and tries to snip if something's up. Tries to see, is there a low drone count? Why aren't there any drones? But it's very hard. At this point, you don't really expect drones at the third.
And it's not going to be, so far, any major changes, it looks like, from Volt. He's going to make his Liberators, getting his stem, etc. If you did know the Roaches were coming right now, what would you do differently?
So you'd probably keep the Liberator at home, and then stop making Hellions, try and get tanks, Marines, bunker. So
Yeah.
hope to see that as soon as, this command center in that location, it's going to get picked off. That's really unfortunate. Voltacus has no idea what's happening.
And he is going to send this Liberator and Hellions across the map. He's thinking to himself, oh, we're going to do some harassment. But will he spot? And it looks like he will spot these Roaches. And there's absolutely no reason that Roaches would be out on the map right now for any reason other than a major attack coming. So he's going to start to batten down the hatches. But he decides to leave the Liberator on shift queue to go into the main. Looks like he's going to try and do some counter damage, and he fancies his chances of holding at home.
Yeah, it can be a good play. The Liberator can sometimes just rack up so many kills while your opponent is busy trying to do damage at the front. Voltacus, he hasn't made any bunkers yet. I don't think he's swapped off his factory to make a tech lab. As soon as you see the Roaches, you really need to react super quickly to have a chance of... No, cancel on that. I think this is unholdable now.
Yeah, it is a nice position on this Liberator. He's really denying mining here, but as soon as he takes his eye off of it and starts focusing on the micro back home, he's going to lose it, and it looks like it's just Hellions against Roaches, never what you want to see. Voltacus's second racks is still not done because the SCV that was building it has died, but he is about to get a tank out.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, there is a tank nearly out. Voltacus just needs to hold on, but I think it's too late. There's already 3 Ravagers in his main base. If they just pile on this tank as it sieges, it's going to die.
Yeah, and he's going to just micro it to his heart's content here and pull as many SCVs as possible, but there's just so much Zerg here, and already we're down to 17 workers from Voltacus, so even if he survives here, a Liberator does come out, but Bile's already down. There's only 2 Biles, though, so he's not actually going to be able to deal with it. I like the repair on the Siege tank, but with the Biles coming down, it looks like there's going to be just too much Zerg, and we're going to go to 1-1.
Yeah, there was just such a flood of Zerg there. Really good and well-executed attack by Frugs. I think Voltacus' response, it wasn't that bad, really. I think he just needed an extra bunker in the main to buy a bit more time for that tank to come online. He did the right things, mostly just not quick enough, and it was really unlucky his Reaper didn't see that Roach Warren, because he even sacked the Reaper to look for it, which isn't normal.
I do like, though, from Frugs realizing that, oh, they normally check in the main, so I'll just build out the natural. It's a nice little adjustment there.
Yeah, very smart play.
I think you can't rely on probably consistently scouting that. Maybe if you micro the Reaper and go in the main and go around the back, go for like the scenic route, but even then, there's always the chance that you don't see it.
Yeah, so the series is tied up 1-1. I think Voltacus, I think he's going to stick with his standard play, but he might be a bit shaken up now, worried about another Roach attack, which you might not really know how to deal with.
Yeah, the problem with Roach attacks, too, is that there's so many variations of it, so many different timings, so you can't just say, oh, he's going to do a Roach attack. You've got to, he could catch him out again with something a little bit different.
Yeah, and this map, Glittering Ashes, will be our 3rd map. It's quite a big map. It's a good macro map. So Frugs, he could go back into macro play and just do a tidier game than the first game. It's on a much better map, and I think he's got the momentum in the series right now. Voltacus is probably a bit afraid of another attack coming, so he might change up his build, and it might become less optimal. We might make more mistakes. Let's see how this goes.
And you can kind of see the style choices there with Voltacus. I think I really appreciate the way he plays now. The more I see him, I think he's quite safe and solid. He's trying to be as solid as possible. Unfortunately, you can't be safe against everything.
Yeah, exactly. Like with the Hellion Liberator build, it is weak against Roaches, so you really have to scout those Hellions and see those Roaches as soon as they leave the natural.
All right, let's get started into Game 3. So we do have a 1-1 scoreline in the best of 5 between these 2 Titans. And our first Titan in the bottom left-hand corner, playing for himself, he is Voltacus.
Woo! And in the top right, just clinching himself a map win and tying up the series, we have the pink Zerg representing Imperial College London, Frugs. Woo! Yeah. And this is a best of 3, by the way, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
did I say best of 5?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. Best of 3. So this map will determine the victor of this series, and with that, possibly the group. Not the victor of the group, but it might determine who actually makes it out of the group.
Oh, wow. We do see a really fast scout from Voltacus, a 17 scout. This is what I meant. Voltacus is getting paranoid now. This is going to mess up his build a bit. The Hellions might be a bit later, and the Liberator might not come on time. Things won't flow as well when you have such an early 17 scout.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure even why the 17 scout would be helpful in the scenario, because it's not like the roaches came out that early in the last game. I guess maybe he might be thinking, you know, this game something really early is coming, maybe some sort of pool first or something like that. But yeah, unfortunately, that is going to mean that Voltacus already is on the back foot in this macro game.
Yeah, like, I think a 20 scout, it gets you all the information you need. I think 17 scout is overly safe. If it was like a 1 base play from Frugs with like a 12 pool Ravager style, then this would have been great. But seeing as it's completely standard from Frugs, Voltacus, he's on the back foot a bit, but it's not the biggest of deals. He can definitely recover from this if he plays decently.
Yeah, and he is just going to pull the SCV back straight away once he confirms that it is hatch first. I mean, I guess he could have kept it and tried to block the third, but I think it's better for him to just recoup the losses and try and get his build back on track as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm just a bit worried about Voltacus' mental state going into this game. I hope he just tries to be calm, collected, and do his thing. And
yeah, when Voltacus is in a good mental state, he is a very, very scary player. But as we all do, you know, a little bit of tilt can go a long way to make you not play your best game.
Indeed. And we do see 6 slings actually from Frog, so that's 1 less drone that he has. So that's interesting. I'm not sure if that was on purpose or a bit of a mistake. But at least it keeps his first tumor and his drones very safe.
Yeah, so it might sort of even things out in the end. So we had a bit of an early scout from Voltacus being extra safe, and then Frog's also going for an extra pair of lings to be extra safe.
Yeah, nice scout from Voltacus. I like this, just constantly poking in, trying to get a scout, get a bit of information. Has he seen the 3rd base yet?
You know what? I don't think he has. Oh, no, he has. He spotted it. Yeah, so he knows about it.
Yeah, but last game there was a 3rd base, and then a minute later, ton of roaches. Oh, we do see a fast layer from Frugs. This is extremely fast.
Yeah, so it definitely has the potential to be some sort of... Oh, and losing the Reaper as well is a bit devastating.
Yeah, Zergling speed wasn't even done. You shouldn't lose the Reaper to a Queen like that. Now Voltacus has to play a bit more in the dark until these Hellions get across the map, but even then it's very hard for these Hellions to scout the layer.
What do you think we're going to see out of this layer tech Zerg this early in the game?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a Nidus. I don't think you can do much else with it. He hasn't got any gas to make a Spire with. Well, he's got the gas just about for a Spire, I guess, but I don't think he's going to put down 3 more gases and go 2 base muter. I think this is going to be a Queen Ling Nidus. Yeah, he's got an Overlord across the map, which can go into Voltacus' main base, get the vision.
A couple of Hellions are going to pop in from Voltacus. Let's see if he's able to get the intel he needs. It's going to look pretty normal from the front, other than, I mean, he does have the Nidus on the low ground here. So if he just dives in with these Hellions, he's going to know. But the Queens are in such an aggressive position, it's going to be really hard for him to get in without losing them straight away.
Yeah, it's almost a bit of a lose-lose. You can sap the Hellions in and get the Scalp, but then that's 2 less Hellions you have to defend. Because this is not a Roach Nidus, it's just going to be Lings and Queens. So these Hellions are really crucial when killing the Lings. And then you have to hope to get a surround on the Queen to just DPS them down with your SCVs and whatever Marines you've got. Alright, we do see Liberator across the map. Hopefully this can get some damage done and slow down Frugs' Nidus attack a bit.
Oh, and Voltacus is going to pop in and see that there are a few drones there, so he might be thinking to himself, okay, this is not as weird as it could be, but the Nidus is already going down. Voltacus doesn't know about it. He does have it in his vision, so if he were paying attention, he'd be able to know. But the Reactor just finishing on the starport, so no Liberator coming out just yet. Across the map, he is getting a few good kills there, and all the Queens have gone into the Nidus, so this Liberator is doing absolute work, but there's no defenses in the main from these Zerglings.
Yeah, the Hellions are coming. Oh, the Hellions might be able to get some good shots on the Zerglings before the Queens are out, but these Lings are already doing a ton of damage, and there's not really much defense at all. Oh, this is not what you want. The Hellions fighting the Queens while the Lings are killing the SUVs.
Yeah, he does get a couple good volleys there on the links, but now he's
Oh,
got a complete
no.
surround, has Frugs, and all the Hellions going down.
Oh, the tank as well spawned on the wrong side.
Oh, that's so unfortunate, and now everything is dying. It's GG, and
Wow.
it's a 2-1 victory then for Frugs.
Yeah, great performance from Frog, showing how he's a fearsome tournament player. He brought out the cheesier stuff when he needed to, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, and I really like that from Frugs. We kind of saw the way he put the series together. Game 1, played a pretty standard game, lost to Voltacus pretty convincingly in the standard macro game, and he said, you know what? Why would I play a macro game against you? So he had, a pretty big bag of tricks that he's able to bring to the table, and he showed that he was able to pretty convincingly take 2 games in that series with it.
Yeah, and I think it was pretty well played by Voltacus as well. That macro game was solid, and then his responses in games 2 and 3 were decent, but he just didn't get the information in time. I think especially that last game, I think he was a bit tilted or a bit paranoid, and he ended up losing his Reaper, maybe a bit of nerves there, and then he just couldn't figure out what was going on until it was too late.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be a frustrating one. Losing to sort of unscouted all-ins is probably the worst way you can lose in StarCraft, but it is the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. So that will do it for this series, guys. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be back at you with some more UK StarCraft action pretty shortly. So don't go anywhere.
Yeah, stay right there.